Hello, welcome back, and let's get into this video. I am not going to hold you guys long, even though this video topic, I understand, is very triggering. It can be very triggering for some people. I warn you guys before we really get into this video that if you are easily triggered, this video, whether male or female, this video is not for you, okay? This video is for people who like to get into the psychological underpinnings of behavior as it pertains to the Black man and the Black woman. I am going to talk about it. This is not my first time talking about this topic as it relates to interracial dating, specifically Black men dating outside of their race. I've addressed this topic before, I think twice actually. Once when I moved back to New York City in 2020. Wow, it's 2023. Yo, time flies. I moved back to New York City from LA in 2020. And that video was entitled 7 Reasons Why Black Men Marry White Women. I made another video while living in Los Angeles, I think under the same title, where I was dissecting kind of what drives Black men, because there's something there, right? And by me titling this video, why, is not to indicate, it's not to imply that Black men shouldn't necessarily, right? It's more to gain an understanding. I understand that a lot of Black men, just based off the title of the video, are going to automatically come off in a defensive mode. I've seen that just from history, where Black men would jump on my video and like, oh, why are the Black women always attacking Black men? You're always pointing fingers. You're always attacking us. And it's like, that's not what any of my videos are about, right? I believe that we can have a mature, intellectually based conversation without attacking anyone. That's not what I'm about. That's not the source that I'm coming from. I'm coming from love, and I'm coming from understanding. So let's get into it. This video is actually inspired by a video clip that I saw on Kendra G's page. If you guys don't know, she's a radio host based out of Chicago, Illinois. And she has this dating show where she links singles, right? Typically, Black singles can join her show on either Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and they're able to state like who they are, what they look for in a mate, and talk about some of the pitfalls they have encountered, some of the pet peeves that they don't like in another partner, some things that they do like, some deal breakers for them. So the show is very interesting. I think it's very self-reflective because it gives people a chance to look within themselves and to maybe gain a better understanding, gain more insight as to why are they single, right? Or what's keeping them single. So I really love the show. But I am going to come from more of a critical analysis this particular video that I saw recently. And I actually saw it yesterday, and I think I was a bit disappointed in what I saw on behalf of some things that Kendra said. Now, don't get me wrong, Kendra is my girl, right? But yeah, something jarred me and struck me in a different way in seeing her interaction with this guy. And I know Kendra is her own personality, right? Like, she is who she is not going to change. But I think in looking at the way she interacts with her guests, it communicates a lot, because she is a Black woman. She is reflective of the Black woman gender. Demographic, right? Like, she represents a lot of what Black women go through. I think you can pull a lot from those videos, those interviews that she does with these black men when they come on the show. It says so much. I've seen a recent video where she interviewed an elderly black woman who was 75 years old, and she had so much patience, so much respect for her, right? But then it's like you have a younger black male that comes on your show, and she just has like this amount of patience. It's just like, it makes you want, like, why, right? So I'm going to talk about the reasons I think why black men tend to explore their options outside of their own race in terms of dating and then subsequently marrying a person outside of their race. I think that one could say it could be justified, because when we look at it through the context of survival, right? Survival. The fitness of survival. It makes a lot of sense. Let's get into this video here. Survival of the fittest. I was trying to think of the term. Survival of the fittest, right? Essentially, this theory states that we are attracted to, right? We seek out interactions with potential mates that pose to be a viable, compatible match. It makes sense in terms of one's own survival, right? And we think about survival is not just, okay, that person in and of themselves trying to figure out how they can survive, but we're talking about generationally, right? Thinking about the future generations and one's offspring, right? In terms of selecting a mate, a partner, because usually in dating and then marriage, you're seeking out this person with the intent to procreate with them. When you live in a certain context, when there is a war that has been waged against the black race, you can look at how the black man and the black woman shows up, right? In the context of this waged war. And the war takes the form of many different aspects, right? One may say, oh no, racism and slavery, that's a thing of the past. But no, there's so many different ways that this war is manifested, right, on the front of the black community here in America. And I think Tariq Nasheed did an awesome job in his Hidden Colors 5 series, right? The fifth installment of his Hidden Colors series actually did a review on that, where he actually gave us different chapters that represent the different types of war that is being waged on the black community here in America. We're talking about psychological, we're talking about religious, spiritual warfare, okay? And I think unless you really take the time to study war and you really break it down, you are oblivious to it, and you're not aware of the impact systemically that it has on the black psyche, and how that in turn affects how we relate to each other when it comes to relationships. In fact, like when we are on the battlefield, whether you are actively fighting as a soldier, right? Or if you're just, passively existing and choosing to not set yourself in that type of sphere of thinking and of being, right? Because some black people say, no, they don't see, necessarily anything wrong with what's happening sociopolitically, right? Or they turn a blind eye to it, let's say, and they just want to live, right? Like that song says, I just want to live, right? So they direct their attention elsewhere. But then there are a group of us who are actively, consciously aware, of the war, the different types of wars that are being waged against us. We're aware of these incidents of, crimes that are being committed against the black community, right? We don't turn a blind eye. We are all ears and all eyes. And I think whether you are conscious or unconscious of this war, we still present ourselves in a manner that, you know, we're war ready, right? We are kind of primed for war in a sense, you know, and it makes sense, you know, why you see, and I can speak for Black women, right? Because I'm a Black woman. Like, you know, oftentimes Black men say Black women are argumentative, you know, and I would not deny that, right? You know, we are hyper vigilant. We're on edge. We're on guard. Like, we're ready to go. I think that has a lot to do with this fact that we are in this context, you know, and of course, war has been waged against us. And whether we are conscious of that or not, you know, that's just how we show up. So I'm going to play the video, this clip here. Kendra G actually made this guy a highlight on her show. Let's get into it, right? Let's get into it and hope you guys can hear.
Okay, I can see you now. What's your name?
My name's Oki.
How do you spell that?
O-K-E.
I believe he's Nigerian.
O-K-E. How old are you?
I just turned 30.
Okay, happy birthday. So that means you're
It's nice looking, though.
No, I turned 30 in December.
What's your zodiac sign?
I'm a Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. Okay. Okay. Oh, so how you say your name again? Oki?
Yeah, it's short for Okechukwu.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'll say with Oki. I'm going to say with Oki. Where you calling from?
I do like, let me pause right here, though. I'm going to be pausing throughout this video. It is a 14-minute clip. But I do like that Kendra makes an attempt to understand people with different dialects, with people, you know, who obviously have different cultures and different languages that they speak, you know, different parts of the world, different ethnic backgrounds. Like, I like that she opens her show, her platform is, you know, non-discriminative in that respect. Though I think at times she may come off as offensive because, you know, she is a Black American woman and, you know, she actually graduated from an HBCU. So she was definitely immersed in her own culture, I think, kind of shielded from exposure to other people from other cultures. I think that's what happens when you go to a predominantly Black university. You know, you're surrounded by your own kind. It's just like, you know, you're not really exposed to other cultures. So I think in her interactions with, you know, let's say, you know, people from Africa, right, or who have that the African cultural background, you know, at times she's just like, wait, what? You know, and she doesn't understand, you know, the dialect, and she sometimes messes it up big time. But I like that she at least makes an effort, an attempt to try to understand. She's not like, you know, forget this. Though at times she does lose patience, and you guys will see. Watch this.
Hey, Sal.
You know,
What do you do for a living?
I'm a doctor.
What kind of doctor?
I'm anesthesia, but I'm in residency right now.
So what kind of doctor are you?
Anesthesia.
Okay.
Anesthesiologist.
Sometimes her listening skills aren't that sharp.
Okay. Do you have any kids?
No kids.
Okay.
Anesthesiologist.
So
Hold on, pause right there. Pause right there. I'm like, yo, you got a whole anesthesiologist. This is a Black man, clean shaven. You guys can go and watch the video. I'm not going to put the video here on screen, but you can hear the audio from the video. Like, this is a very well qualified man, if you ask me, and you'll see how he begins to share, you know, different qualities of himself and what he looks for in a mate. And I'm just like, what more can you ask for? I mean, that's just my take, because I understand good quality and value when I see, you know, value in a man. Unfortunately, there are women who don't. And I think it comes, you know, from that brainwashing, which is essentially whitewashing, that they are constantly undergoing. You know, as Black people, you know, we have to come to a sense of awareness, of self-awareness in the context of this war that's being waged against us psychologically, politically, right, emotionally, spiritually. All right, let's keep going.
Understand, is a doctor, no kids.
Yeah.
What kind of woman are you looking for?
I really want a feminine, submissive woman. I don't know like what your take is about like a lot of women who don't want to be like feminine and who don't want to be like submissive. So I'm happy.
Yo, if y'all can see her face, hold on, yo. It's like her whole demeanor changed. She was just so excited and like really enthused about him coming on the show. I think as she is most of her guests that come on, but then he says this characteristic that he seeks in a woman, submissiveness, and her whole demeanor changes, yo, her face. It goes from a smile to just flat face, yo. No affect whatsoever. That says a lot. Like, we're breaking this down. That says a lot, though, you know. And then I think sometimes there is a misconception as to what submission is to the Black woman. So when Black women hear the word submissive or submission from the Black man, yo, why is it we go in defense mode? We automatically go in defense mode. And for me, I'm listening. When he said that, I didn't go in defense mode. I'm like, okay, I wanted to see like what's behind that. What's his understanding of what submission means? Submission is not necessarily a bad thing. We're talking about, okay, he's a doctor, okay? Not just any kind of doctor. He's an anesthesiologist. For those who don't know, the median salary for anesthesiologists, we're talking about near $500,000 annually, okay? Well over 6 figures. 4 times 6 figures, let's say, okay? So it shows that this man obviously has it together enough to complete a medical program, right? He's in his residency. That means that he's finished. He graduated from medical school. I don't think some people get, you know how intense higher education is in the context of these racist white goddamn institutes. Do y'all know? Some people just don't know. You have to go through it to really understand, right? It's difficult. Some of y'all should understand knowing how hard it was for your ass just to get your high school diploma. Okay? It's not easy. It takes much discipline. And more than that, I mean, you're going to really discover parts of yourself. You have no choice. You're going to be mirrored and faced with who you really are and how to navigate that. Whatever insecurities that you had before you came into that doctoral program, you have no choice but to face those insecurities and to overcome those insecurities, right? Because you're challenged in so many different ways when you're going through these higher level credential programs. Let's continue. Have enough respect for the Black man.
Submissive, like growing up, and she was a stay-at-home mom until my dad passed away, and then she had to like get into her masculine frame to support us. She had to go back to school, start working hard and everything. But like at the core of it, I know that she was a very feminine, submissive woman. But like when your husband gets taken away from you and you're just like at odds ends with the world, you kind of have to like really strive and you have to come into the male, you have to get your masculine frame to like, hold it down and everything like that. So
bingo. Let's pause right there. Bingo. Like for him to even have that enough insight in knowing that he just spoke that his mother had that quality of submission. So it makes sense that he would be attracted to that quality and a potential partner, right? And a potential mate. And he talks about how that submissiveness was at the core of who she was, although she ended up having to put on her bootstraps, right? And to make ends meet for her family because she lost her husband, his father. Even though she had to get up and go to work, and she was solely responsible for their well-being, for his survival. Who knows what that looked like? You can only imagine, especially if you're in an impoverished situation, as he mentioned, But she did that, and he's saying, although she went to work, she still maintained that submissiveness at her core, right? So it makes sense. Let's keep going.
femininity is number one for me. I can't deal with like someone that's like masculine. I can't do that at all.
So I was wanting to listen while you were speaking. So to you, if a woman works hard and has to take care of the family, that's considered masculine? Because you said, hold on, you said that when your dad passed on, your mother had to get in her masculine frame and go out there and work.
It takes a degree of masculinity to do that, though.
A woman who's working hard, that's considered masculine?
Okay, maybe I have to rephrase it. I don't think, okay, I think it's, no, I don't. I think, I'm basically saying in the terms of like she had to.
I like that he took responsibility like, for her misunderstanding.
She had to like shut off all men. She had to just kind of like focus on, you know, being successful, focus on us like having a good education.
It's more traditional, on, like, right? Us, like, and granted, a lot of African households are traditional in the sense that the man is the head of the household, right? The man is the breadwinner. He is responsible for providing, for protecting his family. His family just is not relegated to his children, but it includes the wife, the mother of his children.
You know,
something that a lot of Black American men
me and my brother, we were very young, and I have two older siblings, which were women, my sisters, and so like me and my brother were the younger siblings, and so we kind of had to really like just sit back and just play the role, and just like we couldn't be the men of the house, you know. So like she kind of just had to be the man of the house. But I'm not saying like her working hard was masculine, but I'm saying like
so
her,
what is that?
She just had to be
so break it down so we're clear. What
I mean, think about it now. Like, even though he mentioned she was the one that obviously had to pick up where the father, you know, his deceased father left off in terms of going out there working and bringing in the money and providing for the family, taking on that role. You know, he also mentioned that she also had to take on, you know, such masculine role in the household. Now, thinking about what it really entails to be a single African mother raising sons, okay? That should be enough said right there. How is it that the Black woman cannot relate to that? I mean, I get that Kendra don't have any children. I don't have any children, but hell, for God's sake, I do have sisters. And there are women, you know, obviously that have been around me that were single mothers, are single mothers. So how can you not identify with what he's saying as a Black? Like, why is there a disconnect between what he's saying and Kendra receiving and understanding that as a Black woman herself, knowing that, come on, there are a lot, overwhelmingly a high number of Black women here in America who are definitely in that situation in which he described. So she should automatically get it. It's like Kendra went to college. I don't know if she has a higher education degree, a master's or anything, but I know she said that she's, you know, a graduate of Hampton University. She talks about that all the time. It's like, come on. So how are you so remiss of the Black experience? Is it that you have been removed or disconnected because of your economic status? You know, even though, yes, you're a Black woman, but you're surrounded by all these celebrities and financially well-off Black people that you can't somehow put your mind to understand, you know, the type of Black woman that he's describing and how, you know, she had to take on like the role of a man. Imagine being a Black woman raising Black sons who will grow up to become Black men. You have to like tap into your masculinity as a woman. I mean, I work as a psychologist in a state hospital. I am the ward psychologist on my ward. Every ward has a psychologist assigned. I am the psychologist on my ward. My ward is all men, predominantly, I would say. Is it about 100%? No, it's not quite 100% because I think we have, one white, but close to it, right? We're talking about majority Black men. So there are times where I have to tap into that masculine energy, right? It's about balance. I can't be showing up there all in my feminine, solely in my feminine energy, working with these. No, you have to have a degree of strength. And I get that it's all about perspective. So one may say, oh, so a woman can't be strong. How do you define masculinity? Are you saying that she has to be, strong? Yes, right? Beyond that, sometimes borderline aggressive, assertive, borderline aggressive, right? To be understood, you have to take that dominant role in a sense, right? In asserting your authority over a person, in ways that she probably would not have to do if her husband was still there and he was, with her. He died, right? So Kendra, sometimes she's so aloof. I love her, but she's so aloof at times.
I think a masculine woman is a woman that's not cooperative. I would say like a masculine woman is like a woman that basically she's not cooperative.
I get them.
Very argumentative, combative. Doesn't want to let the man lead.
Okay. Sorry, I keep pausing, but I have to interject here because it's like I get it, right? It's like what he's saying is not much to ask for. Being cooperative and less combative. Keyword combative. Right? It goes with this theoretical understanding, interpretation of why we show up the way we do in the world as Black women, We are there's war being waged against us. And in the same vein, it's the reason why, as this video is saying, the topic of this video points to Black men are venturing. They tend to kind of venture to see, because if, there is a differentiating factor when it comes to race and, and masculinity, the balance of masculinity and femininity, right? Across different races, you see that there is a difference, objectively speaking. It's just like, if as a Black man, I'm not a Black man, but I can only imagine, Black men have it hard. I empathize with them. Like, they have it hard enough. Okay? Just imagine being in the shoes of a Black man. It's hard for Black women too, Black people in general, right? But when there's so much propaganda, there are strategic efforts being waged against the Black male demographic to target the Black man, to incarcerate him, to kill him off by white police officers, right? The system is designed for the Black male to fail, right? So I definitely get, there are a lot of memes that point to how, Black men, they already have enough out in the world that is against them, right? They endure enough challenges and enough stress and hell and heartache out in the world. The very last thing they want to do is come home to a wife who is causing such strife and hell and heartache, right? You think about the disproportionality when it comes to life expectancy for the Black male compared to any other demographic. They are at the bottom. They are more likely to die when it comes to heart attacks, right? Things that we could have control over when you think of it, right? It's like when there are already systems designed to cause stress that we know is correlated to heart disease, right? And having high blood pressure and heart attacks, right? It's like, what do you want to buffer? What do you want to minimize that as the feminine energy? What do you want to naturally, right, have this inclination to balance that off so that at least lessens that likelihood that he will die at 49, right? Maybe he may live a little bit longer, 59, 69, But the average life expectancy for Black men is not as high as it is for Black women or any other race. That's just, and especially when you take into account Black men who are in prison, Black men who are killed, unfairly, unjustly at the hands of police, right? So when he's talking about having a woman who is at least cooperative, and she took it, there's different ways you can take what a person says, right? You guys will see how she took that, she spent it, because she is that woman, right? He's calling her out, essentially. So it makes sense that she will be combative. It's not that she's playing devil's advocate. It's clear that she is definitely not that submissive woman that he is describing, right? And she's looking at that as a form of rejection, essentially. Like, he is rejecting her, even though he's not on the show to get Kendra, but he's, pointing out these negative characteristics that are consistent with her personality type, and just her behavioral type as a woman, who she is. And as I said before, yeah, one could say it is justified for why Black women, we are the way we are, We're not as cooperative as we could be, but considering the context, we can be very combative because we are in war mode, okay? We're war ready. The unfortunate thing is, though, that we wage war. This war that has been waged against us, we take it out on our own, the ones closest to us, whether it is family members, it is friends, it is potential partners, it's the Black man. That's who gets the brunt of this pain, that has been thrown at us, that we are constantly fighting as a demographic, as Black women. It's unfortunate, and it's not like it's a secret. It'll be a different thing if Black men did not have the insight, or even if they did have the insight, they were secretive about the struggle that they go through in dating Black women. And this obviously doesn't apply to every single Black woman or every single Black male. We're talking about generalities and the trends that have been objectively observed, right, in these demographics. But that would be a different story if these Black men, were just keeping it kind of bottled in and not expressing their truth. But for Black men to get, on these platforms publicly and take the risk of saying, okay, this is my experience, that's a lot. And then for Black men, the Black women, to still not be receptive to that or trying to understand, I think that's problematic. That's a big problem there. We have to be real and honest with ourselves. That's something wrong, I think, when it comes to the Black woman. It's just like, come on, give them a break. And yes, it goes both ways, but come on, no, listen.
It's crazy because, you can see through body language, you can see through the subtle things, like a woman will do. Like, I remember, I'll be on dates, and then a woman will be like, "Oh, hey, park here," or do and I'm like, "Yo, I'm driving." I'm like, "You don't have to tell me where to park." It'd be the smallest things, just a very assertive personality. I feel like
and maybe overbearing,
have to get served,
and a little bit too dominant. Right? I definitely get what he's saying. I can make an argument for either side, right? Let's go with the example that he gave when he says, for example, he's been on dates and looking for a parking spot, and she's like, "Hey, park there," right? Now, for him, he's saying, no, he doesn't want a woman telling him where to park. He wants to find a parking space, even if it means him going around the block 20, 30 times. And men are like that, especially when it comes to directions. Sometimes they just want the woman just to sit back and let him find his way. This is nothing new that he's saying. I've heard this decades ago. I've seen it between my own mom and my own dad, yo. Like, I grew up in a 2-parent household, and yo, it's funny. I've seen it. My mom, like, she used to hate that because she is that woman. Like, she's assertive, you know. She will step in, and sometimes, you know, women, I think we may have a quicker response time, or, you know, just we're able to scan the environment quicker, you know, and men may take a little bit longer, but, you know, men, it's their interpretation of what that means to them. For them, like he's saying, it means that he's not dominant. She's more dominant than he is, and that's important to him, apparently, as an alpha male. We're talking about a whole doctor here, anesthesiologist. He didn't go for the low level position as a janitor. He went for, you know, top dog in the hospital, right? Damn near. So it's like, come on. This is obviously him being in control, him being dominant, him being the leader of his household. Those are characteristics that are very important to him. So for a woman to show up and to challenge or pose a threat to those values that he holds to be very sacred, that is going to be problematic. Now, granted, we live in an ever-changing society where no, women are not that same breed anymore, of the type of women that just sit back in silence and let the man lead. Let the man take 20 trips around the parking lot till you find his parking space when you probably spotted one 2 minutes. You know? What do you guys think? I want you guys to feel free to share your comments below. But it does remind me of a date. I dated an African from Gambia. And I was living in Los Angeles. He invited me to come spend the holidays with him. So I came to New York, and I was staying at his place. He had just ordered a whole new entertainment set for himself for the holidays. Big screen TV, you know, this entertainment stand with a electric fireplace. Obviously, it required assembly, right, to put it together, for you to assemble the pieces. And given that, you know, I know African men, like I'm exposed to them, I'm friends with them, I've dated them, I know typical African man here, like we see. You know, they want to be in charge, they want to take the lead, and so it's a prime example, yo. It's funny, yo. But his entertainment set came in the mail. It actually came when he was, you know, at work. I was at home, you know, at the house waiting for him to come home from work. And it came, and he came home, and he was excited that it finally came in the mail. And, you know, he was set on putting it together. That was his, you know, primary thing. So I let him put it together, right? Men want to do what a man wants to do. It took him, I kid you not, yo. He was out there over 6 hours. Like, it probably was 8 hours. It was a long time. He was out there fiddling with all the parts and pieces and screws and all of the instructions, trying to put this entertainment system together. I feel like I didn't want to impose myself onto him in that situation. I wanted him to let him be a man and put it together by himself. Granted, I did peek out. So he was in the living room putting it together, and I actually was away in the bedroom. I would peek out and ask and offer, you know, everything okay? I'm okay. I'm okay. That's the alpha male, right? I'm okay. Don't want to ask for help. And it wasn't until the next day I realized, okay, something is a bit off. Like, his energy is off. He doesn't seem like he's in a good space. And it wasn't until I think I got back to LA that he revealed to me that he was upset because I did not help him. Now, granted, I know if I offered my help and I actually intervened, it probably would have took less, right? 2 heads obviously could be better than one. But I'm like, I took it that he didn't want that. it's like sometimes women, we are damned if we do, damned if we don't. This is just an automatic, honest to God truth, right? Like we can offer our help, and then men still take it a certain kind of way, like, oh, well, you know this, like we're showing off, our skill set that they feel threatened by because he didn't get it right off the bat by himself, and then a woman comes in and is able to figure it out, within very little time, and then he feels a certain kind of way. I thought that was the most funniest thing, about that. I tell that story a lot because it just tickled me.
Bro, so if you have those characteristics, it's kind of like, wouldn't you agree, or?
Oh, this is for what you desire. I mean, you have to find what fits for your life.
No, I'm saying like in terms.
I just feel like life is not one size fit all. So there are women that you desire exist, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's women that what your definition of submissive is. That's why I always ask people their definitions, because everybody's definition to the answer is differently. But I don't think people were created to be the same. So there are certain women who are strong because they have to be strong, and they're leaders because they're running companies. Like, you're on my platform right now. This is ran by a woman, and as a woman, I can't be no punk hosting this show. So I might, according to you, showcase masculine energy as a host because this is my shit, right? So, as in, I'm just
yeah, and to her point, because as a successful Black woman myself, and I already gave the example of how I am a female psychologist on an all-Black male ward, and these are dominant kind of alpha male energy men that, that's typically who you see institutionalized, right, in these state systems, whether it's prison or in a state psychiatric facility. Like, that's usually those are the people who usually become the kind of rejects, right, or the target, people who end up becoming victim to their own circumstances. But yes, it requires, like, you have to assume this position. You have to assume this role, whether you want to or not. And I think back, like, imagine, because I have men that I've come across in dating, and they're like, oh, well, you're in your late 30s and you're single. And one actually said, oh, well, that's what you get because, you felt that getting your doctoral degree was more important. But I'm like, if I sat my ass around and just focus my whole energy and attention on finding a man, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, pursue my higher education goals. I'm not going to achieve high. I'm not going to, reach for the stars. I'm just going to sit back and wait on my Prince Charming. Like, then I will be damn still, because I will probably be living on fucking food stamps, on welfare, just in a very terrible situation that, I am not allowing myself to allow my life to sit back and just rot, assuming that this is the path, this is the way to achieve this ideal of, getting married or being chosen by a man. Because, men prefer, alpha men who are going to take care of women prefer a woman to not be more successful and not to make more money than him, right? And be available. It's just like, no, I directed my energy on what I felt was in my control, right? And then if the universe sent a man, then I will make accommodations, which I did. I was in a whole PhD program while dating, and I made accommodations, but at the same time, it's just like, obviously completing a program of such rigor takes a lot of amount of energy, and effort, consistent effort, like focus on that. And yes, when I came home, I spent time with my partner. My attention was on him. But when I'm there, I'm focused and I'm there. I would answer the phone and reply to text messages while I'm there. But if I'm like in a lecture, how can I? I'm in a lecture. I'm in class. He would take offense to that too. My partner, I remember, he would take offense to that. I get it.
So what's that trigger? It's not that trigger. I think because he asked me, do I the same. And
No,
different people
I'm saying-
show up in different ways for different reasons.
I think there's a misunderstanding.
People were saying that he was kind of feminine because he was like,
and be a boss, but
was
I'm
now
just
doing
saying
that.
the term she becomes masculine when she puts that before like her husband, like when she prioritizes that like before her husband. Like whenever you're like, oh no, I'm rather get the bag rather than like satisfy my man. Like then that's when it's like, okay, like that's really masculine because it's like, why are you choosing?
No, if you already got a man, okay.
The money over like a life with a man you
Listen,
admire,
let it
love,
play,
and respect.
listen.
You know, so that's when I have a problem. I have no problem with my wife, my girlfriend, like making money, but like as long as that doesn't interfere with her, you know, her duties, like what she has to provide in the relationship, which is, you know, so like just being in the feminine role and
You shouldn't have to
kind of be my
apologize for
support
what he
system and
wants.
kind of like, you know, be an asset to me and not a liability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's keep going. So, was that your deal breaker? Are there any more deal breakers?
Yeah, that's the main one. I mean, I'm not really like a hard guy to please, but that's like the main one. Like just like really just be combative, masculine. Like I need just someone that's just gonna be cooperative. Like just someone that's gonna be like, okay, well maybe we can do this. Maybe like someone that's willing to compromise. You know?
Okay, well, no compromise. Does she have to look a certain way?
And I think also with that, like when he's asking for cooperative compromise, like it takes a degree of trust. And because like when you're in war mode, everything can be perceived as a threat. I don't think being in war mode, given this socio-political context in which black men and women exist in, specifically black women, because that's what we're talking about here, it's not something, war mode is not something you turn on, you turn off. Like either you're ready for war, your ass ain't, right? And you're primed for war or you're not. We are definitely primed for war, to be combative, right? To be ready to fight. You know, not to say that's a good space to be in, but that's just how our experiences, our environment has shaped us to be. And it's important that we are cognizant of that, you know, so we can get the healing. A lot of us are suffering from post-traumatic stress and slave syndrome disorder. We are, right? We're constantly scanning our environment. When you're ready for war, that's what you do. You constantly are scanning your environment for threats, whether you are aware of it consciously or not. It is not something you turn on, turn off. This is just something that has been activated in you. That's who you are. It becomes who you are. You know, that's part of your genetic makeup. It's like epigenetic. Your environment shapes your genes and made your genes to respond in a way that you feel safe, right? And you're guarded and you're constantly, you know, on edge. You're constantly, you know, having these, you know, combative interactions with your environment. Is that the way? Is that natural? Is that how things should be? No, if in a perfect world where women didn't have to do that, when women didn't have to show up that way, right? And thinking of how things were historically, right? All this stuff is passed down. So let's say even if things have gotten better in our society currently, not to say it's perfect, but if it has gotten better where we're in an environment, a situation where we're not really having to fight, right? Anymore in that way, like our ancestors did per se, when they had water hoses sprayed on them, when they were beaten with batons by police officers, you know, they're constantly having to march and to fight for basic rights on an everyday basis. Like you see that happening. There are waves of it happening in American culture, you know, but if you think of, just look at the past 2 years, like during the time of the pandemic, how many times did that really occur, right? It's almost only when they publicize these police brutality incidents. It's only when that happens, when it makes the media, that we are on guard and ready to go to the streets, right? So those instances, I think, are less frequent compared to times past that our grandmothers, our great-grandfathers, had to endure. Is much different, but yet and still, even though those incidents are less frequent, those genes just have been passed down. It's activated. It's just like we automatically are born, when we're conceived in the womb, we're shaped to be this being that, whose amygdala is already hyperactivated in a sense, just ready for fight or flight. And usually we fight, and we fight each other. And we become victims of friendly fire.
Way, like what do you mean, like in like specific, like?
Well, this is your opportunity. I can't answer these questions for you. You gotta answer them for yourself. So it's really about
okay. I like women that are in shape, like athletic, slim, thick kind of build. A woman that's in the gym, like you can't. I'm not, like, since I'm a doctor, I'm not like against plastic surgery, because I'll benefit it at the end of the day. I'm making money off of it because I'll be doing anesthesia. But if you're gonna do that, then you have to keep it right. You have to keep it tight. Like you can't just do that and then just not work out. She has to be active. She has to go to the gym. She has to be on a diet, because a woman that goes to the gym that's on a diet, it shows discipline. If she's disciplined, then that's a very important characteristic for a wife. Because you don't want to marry a woman that's undisciplined. A woman that's disciplined, she's going to, keep her schedule. She's going to keep her routine. She's going to know what to do best in, like, right and wrong situations. And she has a certain discerning nature about her.
Attractive.
So, like, people may think, like, that's
from an
evolutionary
small, like,
working out, a diet, but it's actually very huge when it comes to your personality and like the way you conduct your life.
Okay, fair enough. Does she have to make a certain amount of money?
Not really. I mean, I honestly, I don't want my wife to work. I don't want my wife to work, and she can whatever, as long, I don't really care. There's no,
So okay, I'm happy we got there. So you don't want your wife to have a job?
I would prefer her to not have a job, only because I think that would interfere with the children. Like, I really want my children to have that, the really dynamic household where it's like.
And I don't think what he's asking for is unreasonable. I personally like that. Like she said, every woman is different. We're not all the same. But for me, I'm like, that's the life. To not have to work. And he's saying that the purpose would be so that her energy could be redirected to the domestic responsibilities of taking care of the home, right? Of ensuring that your children have proper care and education, not to turn them over to some random daycare with daycare workers who only make $8 an hour, $9 an hour, who don't care, who your child's interest is not their best interest, right? They're not properly, the daycare workers aren't themselves properly educated, on what is required to pour into a child properly, how to shape their mind, given the shit that we're already in, politically as Black people. I think about Dr. Umar Johnson's school that he is building, right? A lot of daycares are not African-centered daycares, right? So they're not, they're not creating this buffer to provide this safety net and this sense of security, and shaping the minds and molding the minds of these young Black children in such a way that they are primed to love and to embrace their own Africanity, their culture. That's not your traditional average daycare, let alone school system. We're talking about a school system that now has outlawed critical race theory. They don't want to teach children about the systemic effects of racism, you know, and how there has been a system strategically designed to further oppress many different groups of ethnic minority people, you know? This is a man who obviously is educated, let alone smart, and has a lot of wisdom himself, right? So he's forward thinking in that respect. He knows what he wants. How could, I mean, you guys are gonna see how this video ends. You're going to hear it, but it's like, how could anybody think this is bad? I think, our minds are so warped as a Black community. I swear, we fucked up, right? Because it's like we elevate and we praise shit that it doesn't mean us any good, right? Just like this interview just came out with Young Miami and Trina. Now, they're beautiful Black women, don't get me wrong, right, from Miami. But it's just like, you look at all the praise and accolades and worship that they are getting for, really degrading themselves as a reflection of the Black female community. The things that they promote, I'm not going to repeat what they talked about in the interview, but you just imagine, the shit that Black female rappers rap about, right? We give praise and respect to things like that. And we're all talking about the content. I'm not casting judgment on the person in of himself, but just the content of what we give praise and reverence to, the type of content. But yet here, there is this prototype of a man who is saying that he wants structure. He understands the importance of a hierarchy in terms of structure in his household, and he wants to be the provider. He wants to provide a sense of security for his woman, his mate, his wife, his potential mother of his children. He wants to provide. Like, we fucked up, yo. We really fucked up in the head, for real.
A parent is always their caretaker. I don't want I don't want my kids to be like around daycares or my kids to be taken care of by like my grandparents. I want either me or her to be at home, So that's kind of the reason why.
Who don't want to work. I meet them on my show all the time. They're looking for somebody, they don't got to work. So there's women out there that would sign up to be a housewife.
And that is work.
But it's not necessarily like I want her to be like a housewife too. Like, she can have like a home business.
Right.
She can do PRN
she has to work from home and take care of the kids?
No, she can do part-time.
He said she can. See, Kendrick hear what she want to hear. Talking about, she have to work and take care of the kids too? No, he just said she can. She can.
So,
not that she had to. Here we go. She asked him to the Kendrick can.
You know what that is?
No.
The Kendrick can is when you stand up and we see your full body.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. They can go on Instagram.
You don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice.
No.
Why I gotta do all that?
Because everybody does it. It's the Kendrick.
He's so handsome, yo. Oh my gosh.
It's just that you stand up so we can see your full body. Right now, we see is your head.
Oh no, I don't really want to do all of that.
You don't have a choice. So you want to end right now then?
Why we gotta end though?
Because that's the part of the show. Okay. You're coming on to my show. Everyone does it.
I respect.
So you want somebody to be cooperative, but you won't be cooperative.
No. I respect that. We can end it. I just
I should have ended it a long time ago. If I knew that was gonna happen, I could have hung up on you 10 minutes ago. If I knew that was gonna happen.
Yo, hold on. I gotta say something real quick. I'm gonna let the rest of the video play out, but that's the prime example. It goes to show you, y'all, why it's like it makes sense why sometimes Black men do purposefully seek out, because think about it, this is the pattern. Like, they have attempted to interact, right, and to engage Black women with the intent of building something, right, and procreating and dating, marriage, and they've attempted this, and then there's a constant pattern of this this kind of behavior that you're seeing, where it's just like, I I definitely understand why the black man's like, listen, I'm throwing in the towel. I can't. Let me try something else, right? Let me see if, not to paint other races or ethnic groups on this pedestal as if they're perfect, but there's a lot of things that they don't have, right? It's a lot of things that, unfortunately, given our, historical experiences, right? And the way that we are treated as a group of people, as black people, we cannot ignore the fact that there are racial differences on many different aspects. Like we have very poor frustration tolerance, and it goes to show, like, come on. There's we embody this negative and implicit racial bias against our own selves, internalized racism that we have within ourselves. We don't even see it, so we're not aware of it, but it's there. I see on her show all the time, because there are other people from other races that come on her show, and the amount of patience and tolerance that she shows towards people from other races is much higher. I don't think I've ever seen her hang up on a white person on her show or a Latino person, but she's very quick to hang up on black men and black women. Her tolerance for black people is like this. It's something to be said about that. Come on, we see that how she treats the elderly. She has the capacity to demonstrate some compassion and understanding and patience, but she chooses not to. That's her choice. She's a single, obviously very successful black woman, but one may wonder, like, why? And sometimes it comes off very clear. This is just what he's talking about. And it's not to say that, okay, they step out their race, that they're not going to encounter problems. Of course, they encounter a different set of problems, right? And so it still creates stress. Stress is stress, on the mind and the body, and it takes a toll. But sometimes that interaction, when you bring a black man and a black woman together, and we're talking about that interaction that unfolds, due to the trauma that a lot of black women are carrying, right? Not by no fault of our own. There's a meme that shows how intergenerational trauma is carried in the womb of a grandmother, right? By holding that seed that then gives birth to her daughter. But that seed was already there before, right? The seed that she's carrying, those eggs, we already, we have the number of eggs that we're going to have, right? When we are born. So it shows like how she's carrying her daughter, and then her daughter is carrying her daughter that will be born, in time to come, but you're still holding that. So imagine, like, for myself, right? Having eggs. And if you can take an x-ray of my stomach and see inside, I'm carrying the seed that then will give birth to my grandchild. We're carrying that. So imagine the trauma that I've endured while carrying these eggs inside of me that will eventually, hopefully, let's say, take form. That trauma is going to be passed down. There is a lot of people, conscious people in the black community, women especially, who are doing like this womb work, right? And they're setting intentionality through meditation, through all different types of exercises to kind of reconfigure, restructure the genetic makeup, thinking that, okay, there's ways through our mind we can activate the good genes, right? And deactivate, or make dormant those traumatic genes that we have. And I question that theory. I really do. I question that practice. I'm like, I've seen videos. What is the name of the elderly woman? I think she has a book, Sacred Woman, or Sacred Woman. What is her name? somebody help me out, but, you know, her, for example, you know, you see women, you know, going to her and they put on this white, right? And they meet and do these like meditative sessions, you know, with much intentionality for the better, obviously. But, you know, it just makes me wonder, like, how effective is that in changing one's biological makeup? You know, the genes that carry these trauma bodies, these pain bodies. I just think that those things are hardwired so much into our DNA that ain't no amount of, you know, meditative exercises, because I work with people. I see it for myself. I work with men and women. I don't only just treat men. That's my primary ward, but I'm providing coverage actually on an all-female ward. And, you know, my patients have endured significant amounts of trauma. You can only imagine, you know, for them to be held against their will in a state psychiatric facility. You can only imagine, yes, they endured some trauma, okay? And considering the amount of therapy they've gotten, so much therapy to kind of undo that, you know, conditioning, undo those experiences, and yet they still are struggling. They still have nightmares. They still want to kill themselves. They still engage in self-harm behaviors. They're still aggressive. Like, no amount of therapy, you know, no amount of meditation and intentional womb meditation and all these rituals that you're doing. Yeah, I think it could help to a certain extent. But overall, like, I'm just questioning the effectiveness of that, yo. And I can definitely understand how some people decide to, you know, make the decision. And who knows, it may not be their priority, because I think these men have tried black women, and that's when they cross over and they're like, you know, because at this point, it's about survival of the fittest. So let's continue with the video. And she's about to go on a whole rant here, okay? Listen.
I was getting annoyed because of that exact moment right there. I don't mind the word submissive because there are women who enjoy being submissive. There's moments in my life where the label might be submission, right? So there's no pushback to that. But what I don't like is exactly what he did. He had all these requests, cooperation, all these things, but could not exchange the same request. You're coming on my platform. You should be aware now, Kendra Cam is at least, we've been doing Kendra Cam since like the summer of last year. So we're about 7 months in.
I get that, but you cannot force a person to answer any questions or engage in any kind of behavior on your show. I feel like that's manipulative, like to hang up, like it's a thing. You're wasting your time. That did not have to end this way. Usually at the end of the show, obviously she does ask for them to do Kendra Cam, which is essentially where they get up, they show their full body. Most people do it, right? There have been situations where they were not able to do it, you know, just given the confines of where they were. You know, maybe they were in a not well-lit place where they couldn't, you know, get out, like they could have been in their car, for example. So it just wasn't feasible at that moment for them to do Kendra Cam. And I think she's let them slide. Like, even still, I get that, yes, that's an expectation for a person to show their full body. But if they're giving their social media, like, the chances of you being able to see their full body, come on, you will be able to do that. Once you go to their social media, and at the end of the show, she asks, okay, how can people get in contact with you? If there are women who want to connect with you, how can they do that, right? She's not given an opportunity to provide his Instagram at all, but I found it, right? Because I was in the comment section, and other people, I mean, her shows go viral, right? Her videos are viral. So, you know, of course, there are going to be people who know the person, in the comment section, right, or on the live video, and there were, and I comment on that video, and I say, well, what's his IG? And somebody like, yo, within 2 minutes replied, yo, and this is after the fact, you know, this is not even during the live video, this is after the fact, and I got a response right away, I think actually early this morning, where they commented his IG. I go to his IG, and oh my gosh, I'm just like, damn, yo, he is so fine. he was even more attractive, like, from going to his IG. Granted, watching the video, I'm like, okay, you only can see, like, you know, from his neck up, essentially, right? But, and that's a video, and I'm just like, and going to his IG, he presents himself so well. And yes, it is true. He is a doctor, okay, a medical anesthesiologist. He's successful. He got a decent following, like over 100,000 followers on IG. You know, and he's humble. It's not like, okay, he's tooting his horn and he's just so unreasonable. Like, I'm looking at his posts, and he seems like a very well-rounded guy. You know, he takes pride in his success. Why not? You know, as do I. You know, and any other black person who's come from the quote-unquote bottom, right? He shows like his journey, his progress of, you know, being born in a household that, you know, is impoverished. They didn't have much. They had to, you know, work with what they had. He lost his father. His mom became, you know, the head of the household. You know, he talked about that in the video where he, you know, they struggled. To see that, you know, he got himself enrolled in school, in med school. You know, he stuck with the process. I think people just see, like, you know, your glory. They see the end product, right? And then you may carry it well, right? You carry your success well. Like, it appears to be like it was easy. But no, people just don't know, like, the pain, the rejection, you know, the letdowns, the failures, okay? Because there are many failures, you know, where you're achieving such high level of success, you're going to fail. But the fact that you keep going, you sometimes are your only cheerleader. And you have to encourage yourself and say, no, keep going, even though other people are telling you no, right? Other people are doubting you. You know, it's designed, the system is already designed so that you do not win. So it's not like people, you know, in the program are rooting for you and are cheering you on, you know, and, you know, are making ways so that you advance. No, everything is designed so that you have to prove yourself. Every single step of the way, you're constantly proving who you are, what you're capable of doing. You know they don't want no black people becoming doctors. You know they don't want us in their freaking country, in their system. So anytime you see a black person, whether man or woman, who is successful, like, have respect for them. To me, it annoys me so much, the amount of disrespect people have. They're like, oh, you think you all that, or you think, like, are you kidding me? If anything, show respect. If you know what a person had to go through, and that's the reason why I've been decided I am publishing my story, my autobiography. I'm making a whole documentary. People have to see that, at least so that they can connect if there's a degree of humanity within that person. You can think about the times when you went through the trenches, you went through hell and high water and still made it out. You had very little. The odds were counted against you. You think of the times when you were in that position, when you were alone, when you wanted to give up, right? So when you see a person come out on the other side, if anything, as black people, men and women, we should be celebrating each other. Knowing that it's not really about us. Our success is not really individual. It can be, yes, but it's really for the greater good of the community. It's a representation of what can be done. There are little people looking up to him, I imagine. Soul Train says, yes. Yes. There are people coming after, looking up to him. Just me looking at his post, it re-inspired me. It gave me a new energy about myself. People, you have no idea what struggles, internal struggles a person may be going through. You don't know how many people may be wanting to give up, right? Looking at his progression in his story on his IG, that just gave me a new awakening, right? A new spiritual, pouring into myself. Looking at his, I'm like, okay, wow, like, it's a reason why I went off and got my PhD and became a psychologist. Because sometimes I look at myself like, well, is it even worth it? Why did I do this? Even though I'm finished with my doctoral, I graduated. I am a psychologist now. I'm this close to licensure. But sometimes I've been questioned, like, what the hell for? You know? You're not acknowledged. You're not respected. Not by all disrespect to all people, but you know, that's just a thing. So you goddamn right, I celebrate other people, men and women, who have achieved something, a degree of success. No matter what that success looks like, I'm rooting for them. Even the Black people who are on their path to achieve whatever goal they want to achieve, I am rooting for you. I have been following you for a very long time, and you're absolutely correct. Yes, people have no idea, and it's just like, come on, but here she continues. It's almost done.
Masculine man. Like, why can't you just honor the rules of the engagement? So I think that's the problem that women have with submission. I don't think women, he used the words cooperation and all those words. It's like, is it equal? Because you're not always going to be right. I'm not always going to be right. Are you going to bend to me if I'm right? Can we have an exchange? Or do you feel like because you were born with the penis, you're automatically right and I should just agree? And I think that's the issue where women at times have a trouble with that. Because agreeing with someone, compromising with someone, everyone's not right, totally get that. But if your word is law and my word is not, then we got an issue. And you probably didn't want to stand up because you didn't want to realize how short you were. Nothing wrong with short men. I actually ride for short men because I feel like there's so many.
He's actually over 6 foot.
That are
he is the perfect. It's like you look at him like, damn, what could be wrong about him? It has to be a catch, right?
You're born how you're born. Who don't always
he got the brains,
or fair chance,
the beauty. He got it all.
Because of their height. Because most women want men that are 6 feet tall. But then I also learned that sometimes when men are short, they make up for their lack in height in
small
other ways.
Man syndrome.
We'll never know though, because he never did the Kendra Kim.
All right, that's the end of the video. But that wasn't the case though. You know, she's making these assumptions, I think, just to assuage her own impulsivity and decision, I think, that she made in cutting him off, you know, prematurely. She does that. Kendra is very impulsive, and I think that speaks to something that she hasn't quite resolved, that she needs to work on within herself. Seriously, because we've seen it happen. Like, she has this amount of tolerance, of patience for, and oftentimes it's men, right? It's just like, what did he do? He just said he didn't want to do the Kendra Cam. He answered all of her questions. He was respectful. You know, he just said no, I'm not doing that, right? And he said, y'all can go to my IG. And on this IG, you can clearly see his height. Yo, dude is tall. He's over 6 foot tall, right? He's showing he's not hiding anything about who he is. His name is there in plain sight, his full name, right? You can see him wearing his work badge, you know, as a medical doctor with his name on it, where he works. It's just like, yo, come on. What more can you ask for? But maybe it's a good thing that he didn't get a chance to close out, you know, with his IG tag and all that, so that people, you know, if they're really serious, would be prompted to go and find him. He's not that hard to find, in fact. So, you know, I was very inspired by just looking at his IG page and his journey. And yeah, purely entertainment is what you call this. Yeah, and I think that's another aspect of it too, because she is an entertainer, and I think she did admit, you know, people come to her show to be entertained. So that's essentially what it boils down to. A lot of people like that. The people who watch her show, they like that aspect when she gets snappy, you know, at her guests. they like it. They like when she cuts people off and she's in charge. You know, it's a whole persona. So I get it. But at the same time, this is a real show. These are real people's lives who are being impacted that she's interacting with, you know, and she does represent the Black community as a Black woman. And so I think there are some things that just should be taken into account. I think this is a great example to just kind of highlight the problems that exist between the interaction, this dynamic between the black man, the black woman, and black women, being very combative and being less inclined to be submissive to a black man. I think that had this show taking place in a different context, and your indigenous kind of cultures within Africa, right? I think especially people who keep to that indigenous dynamic, in those countries, I think it may have looked a little different. But she is very vocal, obviously, and very expressive, and unapologetic in her approach and how she interacts with both women and men. So yeah, I get it, but I think, like I said, it's a good example just to showcase like the problems. And for me, as a woman who identifies herself as a submissive, I think that and he came off as he didn't come off as threatening, right? So I'm like, why is it problematic, that he wants a submissive woman? He's nothing threatening about this man at all. You look at him in the video and on his post, it's just like, he don't seem like he will hurt any woman. He doesn't seem like he has any ill intent at all, that he doesn't give off that kind of energy. So for him to ask for a submissive woman, I think he deserves one, and especially he's willing to take care. I think the problem, which a lot of women are not willing to be transparent and reflective to admit, he is probably on a higher vibration. Exactly. I think he is. He's very attuned to what's happening sociopolitically, in our society. And that's the reason why he said he didn't want to send his children to, your traditional daycare. He thinks that it's better, which it is. Some things, from the old school, how things used to be done back in the day, is ideal. It's the reason why it was done that way. I think sometimes we've gotten so far away from those traditional practices. We think that, being modernized is better, right? Or having these more technological advances makes things better, when essentially it's not necessarily better. I think that it will behoove Black women to take a look within, to be transparent and honest enough to really explore, what is it about us? Like, why are we so guarded? Why are we so reluctant to submit? And oftentimes that question has been answered by Black women who will say, they point fingers at the Black men because they say they don't feel safe. Is that entirely true, though? Because I think if we come from a perspective where we have endured lots of trauma, sometimes our responses and the way we respond to interactions with men is a trauma response. And we are always scanning our environment, looking for red flags, looking for a reason not to submit. When you cross over in different ethnic groups, they have other problems, yes, but that's not one of them. Those women are able to be submissive. I was just having a discussion with my colleague who's a social worker, and she has 2 young children. And we were talking about the research study that was done comparing younger Black children to younger non-Black children, how they interact with their environment, is looking at their degree of safety, their sense of safety in navigating their environment and what they're allowed to do. And research has shown that Black mothers do not allow their children to explore. This is something that is inherently natural and needed for their development as a child, but Black women, mothers, don't typically, this is on a trend, allow their children to interact and explore their environment. They have a tight hold on them. Get your ass back over here right now, right? Whereas women from other races, they're afforded that luxury, that privilege for their children to feel safe. And that child does grow up different. you cannot minimize the effects of those racial differences socioculturally that children experience. It's two different night and day experiences. So that is going to shape who they are, their worldview, how they perceive the world through their eyes, based on how they are raised, based on their attachment to their mothers, based on their sense of safety in their environment. You think he deserves a submissive woman too. He needs a woman like yourself. Oh, that's so sweet. I don't think I'm his type because I wouldn't say, I'm fit. I wasn't out of shape necessarily, but I think he's saying he wants like a woman who's like always at the gym, has like this perfect physique, and clearly your girl got some thickness there. Yes, this is true, and you are correct. This is why they go outside their race. You are speaking straight. It's just true. It's just like, yes, other races, those women, they got their problems. I made a joke about, how black men think that they came up because they got a white woman until those wrinkles set in. So, yeah, it's like white women do age differently on average than black women, right? And those wrinkles do set in a little bit early. So they may have certain kind of problems related to that or other things. But they say at least they got to worry about, this hypervigilance, this combativeness, this war energy. Like we are, we're ready for war. And that's just, we have to be honest with it. I'm honest enough to admit that about myself and just women in general. It's true. We have to be honest. And yes, we have endured trauma, unfortunately, because this trauma that we've endured, even at the hands of our own black male counterparts in previous relationships, it makes us more guarded sometimes. We think about, okay, well, why did we go through that trauma? Looking at what they're going through, what the black males' experiences, right? A lot of black women do become victims of abuse, whether it's sexual, verbal, physical. They say 1 in 4. I think this is irrespective of race, but it's just like when you think of that layered on top of the psychological trauma that we've endured just at the hands of our own parents, which some of us, we neglect to admit that that's traumatic, right? Being beaten, with extension cords and with leather belts growing up. And cable cords growing up. Some of us laugh about that. We dismiss it and say, we minimize it. That's just the way things were. But it's just like, no. There are differences. Sometimes when we're so used to the way things were, because we're in it, right? We haven't stepped outside to see, there's a different way. There are people living a completely different way. You have to leave your own culture to be able to see, that's not what we're supposed to experience. But we think that because we went through that, we experienced that's normal and then that's natural, and oftentimes it's not. I live in Upper East Side Manhattan, which is not that far from Harlem, New York. And I love going to Harlem, New York. I walk there pretty frequently. But just looking at it's such a huge dichotomy. It's just like night and day. It's so different. I'm surrounded by people who obviously are well off financially. Life is good overall, right? You can tell when life, you don't have to worry about anything, at least financial, right? Your basic needs are met. You're able to advance through those stages, right, of self-actualization, if you're familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you have those basic physiological needs met. You're not concerned about how you're going to eat, right? You're not vying for resources, and you don't have to worry about that, right? That's taken care of. You're not worried about being attacked and targeted by the police, right? You're able to fall in, you're able to excel to the next level of that hierarchy of needs, because your basic needs have always been met, right? It never was a threat in that sense. You feel safe. You have a sense of safety. You're able to satisfy your need for intimacy because the foundation is there, essentially. You know, it's difficult, I think, in terms of the Black community to excel to the need to fulfill that need of intimacy when you're worried about such things like that. You know, like those vital things that you think that it should be a given. You know, and you may be well off financially now as a Black man or as a Black woman. You know, like you're financially secure. Let's say maybe not well off, but financially secure. But because you have endured all of this trauma and not knowing how you're going to get your next meal, that is traumatic, right? It's different types of trauma. But because you have endured that historically in your past, it's like you still have that. That need really hasn't quite been met. Even though it has in actuality, it's just like psychologically, you're still carrying that baggage. You're still, like, you can see it, you know, when people eat a certain way, it's just like they may have enough resources, you know, to feed themselves, but they're showing up in a way as if maybe at one time they didn't. Right? So they're still in that frame of mind psychologically. Those chains are still there psychologically. We need work. Speaking straight facts, yes. It is true, and I work daily to make sure I am aware of that and that I am constantly working on that and ways to deal with that. It's definitely a thing, and it's definitely hard work to reprogram. It requires reprogramming, right? The mindset, and with this wave of boss women and being that woman has become entertainment and a way to provide income, we no longer have to put in the real work in order that we become whole mind, body, and soul. I blame reality TV and all this. Oh yes, like the media plays a major role, and it becomes so popular, so accepting because it's the thing to do. And we look up to that because these are so-called successful people that we see on TV, you know, reflective of who we are. So they become idols, role models. Even though we're adults, so we know better to be able to make that distinction between, okay, this is entertainment, right? But then, you know, when you consume so much of this entertainment, it does enter your subconscious mind, it enters your psyche. There are production companies who spend millions of dollars strategically to embed these subliminal messages, these subconscious messages, that even if you had every intent to weed through what's happening in these TV shows, right, and these things, these programs that you're watching, you're not able to catch everything because it's hidden. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, but oftentimes it's hidden in a way where you're not even paying attention. You're laughing, you're enjoying it, you're getting you're getting this dose, you know, of feel-good entertainment that you completely miss it. And it's like, you know, for me, I have a TV in my place where I live, but I use it very purposefully, right, in certain ways. You know, like I've been removed myself from watching television programming, you know, that, like, I'm talking about way back in my early 20s when I was in college. Like, I've been stopped watching TV because I feel like I've always been conscious. I've always been very self-aware and politically aware of what's happening, and knowing, like, it's been too smart for my own good. So I always knew that at 19, 18, 16, like 15, I was young, knowing these things. And when I went off to college, like, I had a TV, but I didn't really watch it. I chose not to get cable. It's garbage. You know, I only was attracted to watching documentaries, educational things. You know, entertainment has its purpose and time and place, you know, but it's just like, no, we have to be able to make that distinction and understanding, like, no, this is not the prototype. This is not the way. This is not who we look up to, you know. But I think that, you know, there is hope. I always like to end when I create videos dissecting, you know, the Black man and woman's, plight in such a public way here. Like, I always like to kind of end on a positive note and a hopeful note, and saying that I always believe there's hope for us. I believe there's hope for me on a personal level in finding, that person or whatever. But I just think that it takes us to take a look within ourselves and to be honest. And we be on here fronting. We always point the finger. I want to talk about, oh, men this, and oftentimes it's vice versa. And I think, even though we get on these platforms and the women, vent our frustrations, and we vent the problems that we have identified in the Black man, and then vice versa, Black men do the same thing, especially in their manosphere, that they have kind of joined forces with the racist white men, which is not really a good look either. But I think it's something to be said, to listen, to see, because nothing really is hidden. Like, Black men are telling Black women, this is what I desire. You heard it in the video. And I want you guys to go watch that video in its entirety so you can see this man. Go to his page on Instagram and you can see it for yourself. But Black men will not keep it a secret and tell you what they look for. And Black women will tell Black men, listen, this is the reason why I'm afraid to submit, right? Do we have enough compassion for each other to provide a safe space so that we can both coexist and we can heal together? Some of the healing work needs to already start before you enter a relationship, but healing is a lifelong journey through the generations to come, right? It just never ends. The healing process never ends. And so I think we need to allow for that space, even in the context of relationships, because we have to keep going, right? Our race, we have to continue to procreate and keep things going. I'm in the process of cleaning all that up. I absolutely know that there is hope. We just have to work together to push a different narrative of that really matters. Keep bringing your truth. Absolutely. But I'm going to end on that note. You guys feel free to share your comments below. Let us know what you guys think on what was discussed here. And I just like to be honest about it, just coming from the feminine perspective, and taking responsibility for what we bring to the table. And knowing, like, when you know better, you do better, right? So when you know that historically things have happened to us, right? And then you know that you are raised in a certain dynamic, in a certain political context, right? That has a certain impact on one's psyche, emotionally, psychologically. We know these things, right? It's up for us to take responsibility for that. Who else is going to do it? We have to. That's what it means to be an adult, right? So I'll say this all in love, and I'll catch you guys and girls in the next one, all right? Share this video.